Raider Nation, what's going on? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. I want to know if you guys watched that Max Crosby episode, Back in Black, man. If you haven't, you definitely need to check it out. But first and foremost, if you're a Raider fan and you like Raiders content and you already follow me on other platforms and you see me, go ahead and click that follow right there. Appreciate you guys. I'm doing more longer videos. I'm getting a little more traction on this page right here. But I appreciate you guys, man. Click that follow. But let's talk about it, man. I went through and actually watched it. It's one of those things you don't actually have to physically watch because they're just pretty much doing podcasts. So you can just pretty much listen, so it's nothing really visual to check out. But you definitely should check it out. Man, the way that the whole thing just happened, I mean, he broke down pretty much the timeline when he heard about it, you know, and with his agent calling him and saying, hey, man, you know, it might go down, you know, because there's a lot of smoke for like 2 months about a trade, you know, and obviously, you know, that smoke ended up becoming true, you know, but just how he heard about it, he was celebrating his 6 years, I believe, sobriety, had a party at his house, and just celebrating with his friends and everything, and then he's like, man, this is crazy, you know, and he told his wife, man, this might go down, you know, and then he heard about it. I guess he was supposed to go to some slap contest or whatever, you know, something in the Fontainebleau or something like that, one of them little things Dana White does, but I guess he was going to that. I'm not sure exactly what the name is, but slap draw, slap some, I don't know, whatever it is. I don't watch that, but you know, and just when he heard about it, you know, he said he was like, man, I couldn't believe it. You know, his phone was blowing up, and he said he didn't end up going to the event. You know, he said Dana White had called him. He's like, bro, what's going on? You know, she's like, man, I can't go there. I mean, which would have been a good idea not to go, because man, would have been so much media, so much people asking questions there. You know, and when something like that happens, you want to be by yourself, you know. So obviously, man, you know, when you look at it, you know, he talks about the timeline from when he got traded. He said he flew out there, you know, and said he had a little bit of time with his wife before, and just kind of spoke about like, man, you know, this happening, you know, because that's life-changing stuff right there, you know what I mean? But he said when he got there, he said he flew him out there, basically, and he said, you know, he flew, and then he said, you know, he went to D.C., and then he had to drive 2 hours to Baltimore, which is crazy. It's like, man, you know, he's like, you would think they would have everything together, but man, to come from a plane all the way that far and then have to sit in the car for 2 hours. But he said, you know, when he got there, he said he was hyped to see like the GM and whatnot. You know, he's like, hey, you know, I'm here, what's going on? You know, obviously he had a lot of mixed emotions going on as well about, you know, being over there, you know, or something. But you also, you know, if someone trades you over there, you got to be showing them love too, you know. But he said it took him like 5 hours. He said he did all these tests on his knee, his ankle, just all the stuff he had. And he said it took like 5 hours, you know, in order for him to meet the GM. And it's like, man, you know, he met the GM and he said he was like, what up? And he said he was like, you know, he's kind of like standoffish. He said, but, you know, I didn't know if it was just him, if he's just kind of weird and whatnot. So he kind of felt the vibe was off, you know, and he said basically, you know, they said we got some concern over your MRI. You know, we looked at your knee. And, you know, we're trying to win the Super Bowl, X, Y, Z. You know, and he's like, you know, like, what's up? You know, I guess he said he was, you know, his doctor, whatever, told him that, you know, he's ahead of schedule. You know, and they basically said like, you know, the timeline with your recovery, we're not sure of your future. So it seems like they already had Hendricks. You know what I mean? Like Henderson, whatever, in that trade fell through with the Colts. So maybe they kind of already had knew. And then they kind of reneged on it and probably was like, you know what, we ain't got to give up. We just lost our center, you know what I mean, Linderbaum. And then he's like, you know, we don't got to give up 2 first-round picks, you know what I mean? So they, you know, they made a deal with him. Maybe they already knew. And then it's like, he said, then he was like, you know, didn't understand what was going on. He's like, man, I'm lost. Like, what happens now? You know, so he said he went back to Vegas, you know what I mean? And I feel like everything happens for a reason, but you just got to check it out. You know, he just said everything was just weird around that whole entire trade, just the way everything had like fell through, you know. But you definitely got to take the time to like check it out. Like even that message when he said he was leaving, you know, that was a real deep message. But you definitely should check it out. And it's like, man, the Ravens, man, pulled some weird stuff. You know, just the way everything went down. It's just like, man, you know, I couldn't imagine how he was feeling. Then he getting there and not really like meeting the GM and like really getting to like chop it up with him and stuff like that. You know, but I'm glad he's back, man. Max is a Raider. Everything happens for a reason, you know, so I'm definitely glad he is back. He can focus on his rehab, man, and, you know, but definitely check it out. But I appreciate you guys, man. Take the time to look look at that video, man, because it gives a little bit of clarity on exactly what happened, when it happened, and how it happened. You know what I mean? He definitely was shocked and surprised that it went that way. But definitely peep it out, man. Appreciate you guys, man. Raider Nation, much love. Peace.